Educated by Tara Westover. Picture this. You're a small child, crouched in your family's kitchen in the pitch black of night. No lights. Your whole family is frozen in silence, hiding from federal agents you're convinced have your house surrounded. Your father has filled your head with terrifying stories about a family just like yours, people who wanted to live free, who refused to send their kids to government schools, and who paid the ultimate price. In your mind, it plays out like a scene from a thriller. You can hear crickets chirping in the darkness outside. You watch your mother's silhouette, traced by pale moonlight as she reaches for a glass of water. Then, crack. A gunshot shatters the silence, and she crumples to the floor. This memory, this vivid, heart-stopping moment, is seared into your childhood. Here's the twist. None of it actually happened. Welcome to the world Tara Westover grew up in, a place of towering mountains, survivalist fear, and stories so powerful they felt more real than actual reality. Her memoir, Educated, has become one of the most breathtaking books of our generation. It's captivated millions of readers, not just because of the wild circumstances of her childhood, but because it wrestles with a question that touches all of us. What happens when the world you've inherited clashes violently with the person you're becoming? By the time we're done today, you'll understand the profound and often crushing price of true education. Not the kind where you memorize facts for a test, but the kind where you forge an entirely new self. This is a story about the courage it takes to walk away from the only world you've ever known, not because you've stopped loving it, but because you've finally learned to love yourself. Tara Westover's story starts on an isolated mountain in Idaho, a place her family called Buck's Peak. To young Tara, this mountain wasn't just home, it was the entire universe. Its rhythms were her rhythms. From a distance, the peak looked like the silhouette of a woman lying down, which her father called the Indian princess. She was Tara's guardian, her god. Her family was unlike any you've probably encountered. They didn't attend school, they didn't visit doctors. In fact, Tara and 3 of her 6 siblings didn't even have birth certificates. According to the state of Idaho and the federal government, Tara Westover didn't exist. Her father was a man of magnetic charisma, wrapped in crushing paranoia. He believed the world was careening toward the days of abomination. He saw conspiracies lurking everywhere, in public schools, which he dismissed as government brainwashing centers, and in hospitals, which he was convinced were run by socialists and the Illuminati. Their entire existence revolved around preparing for the apocalypse. They spent summers canning peaches for their bunker, and winters rotating emergency supplies. They kept bug-out bags, stuffed with military rations and water purifiers, ready for the moment they'd need to flee from government agents into the wilderness. This wasn't some abstract fear. It was a living presence in their home, fueled by stories like the one about Randy Weaver at Ruby Ridge. In her father's version, the Weavers were freedom fighters, murdered by the government simply for homeschooling their kids. This story became the Westover family's founding myth, a dark prophecy of what awaited them. When her father hauled home a stash of military surplus rifles, it wasn't for hunting deer. It was for the inevitable showdown with federal agents. Tara's mother was softer around the edges, a midwife and herbalist. Early on, she represented a gentler possibility. She'd grown up as the daughter of a mailman, in a tidy house in town, a world of order and normalcy. But gradually, she got pulled deeper into her husband's gravitational field. Becoming a midwife wasn't even her dream. It was her husband's strategy for self-sufficiency. She was supposed to be the family healer, delivering babies and treating injuries so they'd never have to depend on the corrupt medical establishment. And boy, were there injuries. The family earned their living from a chaotic junkyard next to their house. a dangerous maze of jagged metal and broken machinery where safety took a backseat to speed. Tara's brothers suffered concussions, gashes, and burns. One of her father's workers lost a finger. Tara herself had a terrifying close call when she was just 10. Her father positioned her inside a massive scrap bin while he operated a forklift to dump 2,000 pounds of twisted metal on top of her. A spike of iron pierced her leg, pinning her down as the bin tilted. She barely scrambled out in time, tumbling nearly 20 feet to the ground. When her father found her, his reaction wasn't concern. It was disappointment. "How'd you manage that?" he asked. He assured her that God and his angels were working right alongside them, and they'd never let her get hurt. This was the bedrock of her father's faith, an unwavering belief that they were special, chosen, and that God's will could be read in every near disaster that didn't quite kill them. But tiny seeds of doubt began to take root in Tara's mind. One of her older brothers, Tyler, was different from the rest. He loved books and classical music. He was the quiet one, the brother who taught himself trigonometry from an old textbook after his single year of public school got cut short. Tyler became Tara's first glimpse of another world. When she was little, she'd sit on the floor of his room, listening to choir music, feeling a sense of peace and order she couldn't find anywhere else in their chaotic household. Tyler was the first to leave. When he announced he was going to college, their father exploded. "A son of mine, standing in line to get his brain washed by socialists and devil worshippers," he thundered. But Tyler went anyway, stepping into the unknown, following a melody only he could hear. He left Tara with a single gift, a CD of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, a small but powerful thread connecting her to the world of learning. The second crack in her world came through her brother Sean. Sean was a walking contradiction. He was the brother who once saved her from a runaway horse with impossible grace, performing a miracle of horsemanship on an unbroken mare. He could be charming and funny, inventing silly word games during long truck rides and calling her Seedle Lister. But Sean had another side, a dark, violent one. It started with his girlfriend Sadie, a girl he cruelly nicknamed Fish Eyes. He'd manipulate her, playing twisted games to test her loyalty, sending her to fetch a candy bar, and then berating her for choosing the wrong kind. Tara watched, confused, but soon the violence turned her way. It started small. When she began wearing lip gloss, he called her a whore. When he saw her talking to a boy named Charles, he warned her, "You don't want people thinking you're that kind of girl." One night, things escalated. After she playfully dumped water on his head, he dragged her to the bathroom, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and shoved her head into the toilet. He held her there, demanding an apology. Later, he twisted her wrist with a martial arts hold until she was curled up on the floor in agony. When she finally whispered, "I'm sorry," he released her. That night, staring at herself in the mirror, eyes glassy, cheeks streaked with tears, she hated the girl looking back at her for being weak, for having a heart that could break. She told herself she was only crying from the pain in her wrist, nothing else. She was unbreakable. This became her survival strategy, a fiction of invincibility. But the violence kept coming. One morning, Sean exploded, calling her vile names and grabbing her by the throat, shaking her so violently her brain seemed to rattle in her skull. He was dragging her through the house when another brother appeared, Tyler, home for a rare visit. Without a word, Tyler stopped Sean cold, stared him down, and tossed Tara his car keys. "Just go," he said. After this incident, Tyler sat with her in the quiet basement. "Have you thought about leaving?" he asked. He told her about Brigham Young University, where he'd gone to school. They accepted homeschoolers. All she needed was to pass one test, the ACT. "There's a whole world out there, Tara," he said. "And it'll look completely different once Dad isn't whispering his version of it in your ear." This was her turning point. For years, Tara had told herself she'd go to school eventually, but her father's disapproval always held her back. His reality was her reality. When he told her that God was displeased with her hunger for college, that she was whoring after worldly knowledge, she believed him, but her mother, in a rare moment of defiance, told her to go. "Of all my children," she whispered, "you were the one I thought would burst out of here. Don't you stay." So at 16, Tara bought an ACT study guide. She opened it to the math section and saw symbols she didn't even recognize. The word was algebra. She bought a textbook and began the grueling process of teaching herself. She took the ACT and scored a 22, not spectacular, but enough. Then, a few weeks before her 17th birthday, she did something truly terrifying. After yet another argument with her father, who was trying to force her to work in the junkyard, she defied him. She got a job bagging groceries at the local store, Stokes. When her father kicked her out, throwing her clothes onto the lawn, she didn't cave. She'd found a sliver of light, and she was determined to squeeze through it. She applied to BYU. Tyler wrote her application essay spinning a story of a rigorous homeschool program that never existed. To her shock, she got in. Stepping onto the BYU campus felt like landing on an alien planet. Her roommates wore tank tops and went shopping on Sundays. Things she'd been taught were sins. She felt like a foreigner in her own faith. The classroom was even stranger. She'd never been in one before. In her first history class, she bombed a quiz on the reading because she couldn't decode terms like civic humanism. The most jarring moment came in a Western civilization art class. The professor showed a slide with a word underneath that Tara didn't recognize. She raised her hand. "I don't know this word," she said. "What does it mean?" The room fell into a heavy, uncomfortable silence. The professor quickly moved on. After class, a classmate named Vanessa pulled her aside. "You shouldn't joke about that," she said. "It's not funny." Confused, Tara went to the computer lab and looked up the word. The word was Holocaust. She sat there for hours, reading about gas chambers, about 6 million dead. It was a moment of profound, earth-shattering revelation, not just about the horrors of history, but about the depth of her own ignorance. The world wasn't what she'd thought it was. History wasn't what her father had told her it was. This became the real nature of her education, a series of these painful rebirths. She learned about the civil rights movement, about Napoleon, about feminism. Each new idea transformed her like alchemy. She read John Stuart Mill, who wrote that regarding the nature of women, nothing final can be known. This simple line was a revelation. It gave her permission to be something other than what her father and her faith had told her a woman should be. Her intellectual world was expanding, but the gap between her and her family kept widening. A professor, Dr. Carey, recognized her unique mind and encouraged her to apply for a study abroad program at Cambridge University in England. She went, and there she met Professor Jonathan Steinberg, who saw something special in her. "How marvelous," he said when he learned she'd never been to school. "It's like I've stepped into Shaw's Pygmalion." He told her she had the mind of a scholar, that her writing was among the best he'd ever seen. Praise felt like poison to her. She could barely swallow it. For so long, her identity had been built on being flawed, on being the whore Sean had called her. Kindness felt like a lie. During this time, her sister Audrey reached out with a raw, misspelled email confessing that Sean had abused her too, for years. She was going to confront their parents, and she needed Tara to back her up. "I am doing this with or without you," she wrote. "But without you, I will probably lose." This was the moment of truth. Tara sent her support. And then, something miraculous happened. Her mother seemed to believe them. In an online chat, she wrote words that changed Tara's world. "You were my child. I should have protected you." For the first time, Tara felt her shame begin to lift. She believed her family was finally healing. She believed the past could be rewritten. She was wrong. The peace was a mirage. When Tara returned home for Christmas, she confronted her father about Sean's threats. Instead of support, she met rage. "Where's your proof?" he demanded. He called Sean to the house. That night became a nightmare. Sean arrived, handed Tara a small bloody knife, and told her it would be better if she used it on herself. The blood, she'd later learn, was from the family dog, which Sean had just killed outside. Her parents sided with Sean. Her mother, who'd promised support, went silent. Her father began preaching that Tara was possessed by demons. The family fractured. Audrey, under intense pressure from their parents, recanted her story and claimed Tara had been controlled by Satan. She told Tara she was no longer welcome in her home. This was the ultimate test: her family or herself. Her father came to visit her at Harvard, where she was a visiting fellow. He came not to celebrate her achievements, but to save her soul. He offered her a priesthood blessing, a ritual to cast out the demon he believed possessed her. It was an offer of peace, but only on his terms. To accept would mean erasing herself, admitting that her memories were lies, and his reality was the only truth. Everything I had worked for all my years of study had been to purchase for myself one privilege: to see and experience more truths than those given to me by my father, and to use those truths to construct my own mind. "I love you," she told him, "but I can't." And with that, he left. The separation was devastating. Tara spiraled into intense self-doubt and mental breakdown. She had nightmares, panic attacks. She questioned her own sanity. Was she the monster they said she was? It was Tyler, the brother who'd first shown her the way out, who saved her again. He and his wife, Stephanie, wrote a letter to their parents, defending Tara and condemning the, quote, chains of abuse, manipulation, and control. They chose her. And in choosing her, they gave her back a piece of herself. Slowly, painfully, Tara began to heal. She finished her PhD at Cambridge, becoming Dr. Westover. She came to understand that the guilt she felt wasn't really about her father. It was fear of her own worthlessness. She had to accept her decision to leave, not because her father deserved it, but because she needed it. In the end, she realizes that the person she'd been, the girl hiding behind a mask of stone, the 16-year-old convinced she was unbreakable, had left her. A new self had been born. You could call this transformation many things: betrayal, abandonment, reinvention. But Tara Westover calls it something else. She calls it an education. Tara Westover's Educated is more than just a memoir. It's a profound exploration of what it means to be human. It's about the families that mold us, the places that define us, and that terrifying, exhilarating moment when we realize we have the power to choose who we become. The most powerful lesson in this book, the one that lingers long after you've turned the final page, is its redefinition of education. We typically think of education as something that happens in classrooms, textbooks, exams, degrees. But Westover reveals something much deeper. True education is the process of self-creation. It's the ability to see the world from multiple angles, to question the stories you've been told, and to construct a mind of your own. Her father gave her a world that was simple, absolute, and certain. There was truth, and there were lies. There was God, and there was the devil. But her education gave her something more valuable: the ability to live with uncertainty. To understand that history isn't a single, unchangeable story, but an ongoing conversation, a series of revisions written by flawed, biased people. In learning that, she learned that she too could revise her own story. This journey doesn't come without cost. The book is heartbreaking in its portrayal of the love and loyalty that bind a family together, even a deeply troubled one. Tara never stops loving her family. The tragedy is that to save herself, she has to leave them behind. Her story reminds us that sometimes the most courageous act of love is loving yourself enough to walk away. So what can we take from this? Here are a few things worth thinking about. First, identify a truth in your own life that you've never really questioned. It could be something you believe about yourself, your family, or how the world works. Something you've simply accepted without examination. This week, just for an hour, make a conscious effort to explore the opposite perspective. Read an article, watch a documentary, or talk to someone who disagrees with you. The goal isn't necessarily to change your mind, but simply to practice seeing the world through different eyes. That's where real education begins. Second, recognize that you're the author of your own life. The people around you, the places you come from, they give you the opening chapters. They set the scene. But you're the one who writes what comes next. You can choose to accept the narrative you've been handed, or you can choose to write a new one. Tara's story is powerful proof that no matter where you start, you have the power to decide where you end up. That was a summary of Educated by Tara Westover. We've explored the main currents of this incredible story today, but I'll be honest, a summary can only show you the surface. The real power of this book lives in the raw, honest, beautifully crafted details of Tara's journey, in the quiet moments of reflection, the small acts of courage, and the heartbreaking choices she makes. This summary is designed to help you see if this story is one you need to experience for yourself. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, if you've ever felt torn between who you are and where you come from, I urge you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning her story, it's about gaining a new perspective on your own. You'll find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to keep exploring ideas from the world's most influential books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey. Let's keep learning and growing together.